Ukraine, one of the biggest states of Europe, its area is 603.7 thousand square kilometers. The country borders directly on 7 countries of the world. The total length of borders is 7,643 kilometers. Ukraine has wide 2,590 kilometer access to the countries of Central and Western Europe. A favorable geographical location and a substantial potential make the national transport system crucial for social and economic development of the country.
Ukrainian government adopted a strategy of development of transportation infrastructure until 2020, which is now under the implementation. And the EU is here also to use skills, models, expertise, technological assets of the European Union to create with Ukrainian authorities a needed critical mass to implement the strategy. Therefore, I am here together with different colleagues from the delegation to help and to assist Ukrainian authorities to implement what has been decided as best tools, as best practices, best solutions for Ukraine.
The transport sector of Ukraine has an enormous potential for development. For instance, in 2012, the Ukrzaliznytsia launched the first accelerated trains. Though the speed is limited to 160 km per hour, this could become the start of a new stage for operating the passenger services.
Мы имеем очень выгодное географическое положение, мы имеем достаточное количество портов.
We have a very favorable geographical location. We have enough ports in Ukraine as well as rail access lines to them. We have a lot of border crossing points with 4 countries of the European Union and with 6 countries. We have a rail ferry connections with Bulgaria, Georgia, Turkey. Therefore, we have a huge potential both in terms of transit traffic development and domestic traffic development in Ukraine, since almost all industrial sectors are focused on transport by rail.
Промышленности, они ориентированы на перевозки железнодорожным транспортом в Украине.
European railways transport annually 300 million ton-kilometers, while just Ukrainian rail freight traffic amounts to 238 million ton-kilometers for the same period of time. Having signed the association agreement with the European Union, Ukraine has received a new stimulus and new capacities for its economy development. A complicated situation the country is facing demands decisive, though sound steps towards modernization. The transport system efficiency, the transport strategy of Ukraine up to 2020 program was adopted. The program was developed by the Ministry of Infrastructure of Ukraine with technical assistance provided by the European Union project, support to the integration of Ukraine in the Trans-European Transport Network TNT. Today it is being implemented with the involvement of EU-funded project support to implementation of transport strategy of Ukraine.
The priority of the work of the EU delegation in Ukraine is to help Ukraine develop its transport system and bring it up to speed and up to the standards that we enjoy in the European Union. Cooperation with Ukraine will lead to Ukraine upgrading its transport system. This will mean practical improvements for all of Ukrainian citizens.
The transport sector modernization may substantially accelerate the development of the national economy, though considering the actual situation in the sector and the scope of tasks to be solved, this would be a challenging process.
I guess the biggest problem is the current stage of the infrastructure in Ukraine. So this is probably the big obstacle, that the needed level of money, of investments is so big that we have to create also big instruments to address properly this issue.
Transport infrastructure assets that need investing constitute now a public property and depend on budget funding. With limited availability of financial resources, it is necessary to settle cooperation between the public and private sectors and to find new funding procedures. And implementation of current European experience is of particular significance here. Within the support to transport strategy of Ukraine project, the European Union provides Ukraine with the technical assistance for developing the regulative and legal framework the sector needs for development, for adopting and finalizing the relevant laws. The most ambitious projects set forth by the transport strategy should integrate Ukraine into the European Economic Area according to the Association Agreement.
Cooperation in transport area between the European Union and Ukraine is absolutely crucial. We have a project of moving closer, of being stronger together. Transport can be and should be the key motor of getting closer, establishing links, and facilitating exchanges. This will benefit our economy. Goods should move freely, quicker, safer, and with lower cost across the borders, and people should be able to have access to a high quality, secure and safe service and should be able to use the means of transport to get closer together.
Ukraine is located on priority directions of the Trans-European transport corridors. This dictates a task of integrating into the Trans-European network and a need of ambitious reform involving all components of national transport infrastructure.
Скажімо, євроінтеграція для нас більше важлива, чим для інших галузей. По-перше, це тому, що ми надіємося на відміну візового режиму.
Your integration is more important for us than for other sectors. Firstly, because we hope that visa regime will be cancelled, and this is one of the reasons that also hampers the vehicle turnover rate during one trip. Because sometimes our drivers have to wait for a month to get a visa. Secondly, this is an approval system. One can't say that our colleagues at the West, representatives of Western states, do not listen to us today. But anyway, they restrict the access to their markets. This may be fair, since, frankly speaking, the Ukrainian road carriers dominate in these services. Ukraine needs the development of public roads. The requirements on traffic density and weight loads are constantly increasing, and they should be met. Therefore, the strategy provides for the construction of new roads and development of existing ones. Accident dangerous sections on the roads should be removed, and traffic capacity should be increased, in particular at approaches to big cities, seaports, and state border crossing checkpoints.
Ukraine has one of the richest network of open waters in Europe, and this is probably something to focus on. With an access to the sea, the water transport can be a fantastic tool for transporting goods.
Seaports of continental Ukraine are located in the Black Sea, Sea of Azov, and Danube basins. The length of inland waterways at the major European rivers, the Danube and the Dnieper, amounts to 2,200 kilometers. The seaports are key transport system points for foreign trade. Quality and amount of transport services exported, competitiveness rate of national goods at the world market depend on their performance. But as to quality and technical parameters, the seaports of Ukraine have remained at the level of late 80th, early 90th.
Ситуацию в отрасли считаю недостаточно удовлетворительной, с учетом того, что за последние несколько десятков лет накапливалась масса проблем, которые привели к тому, что сегодня износ основных фондов инфраструктуры морских портов составляет в среднем 80%.
I consider this situation in the sector to be unsatisfactory, given that a lot of problems have accumulated for the last several decades that resulted into 80% wear and tear in average of the seaport infrastructure fixed assets. And the investment climate is still not favorable enough. Consequently, relations of the state and private business are not properly regulated. As to the prospects, we see them in three aspects. This is surely a development of public-private partnership. This is attraction of material investments into the infrastructure development and facilitation of the procedures for goods at the seaports as well as the alignment with European practice.
Мы достаточно давно начали работать с компаниями Евросоюза, с представителями европейских структур. Работают, несмотря на все сложности, и европейские инвесторы в портах. Помощь сегодня уже заключается, безусловно, в опыте и обучении.
We started working with EU companies and representatives of European institutions rather long ago. The European investors, despite all the challenges, also work in the ports. The assistance today is an experience exchange and training. We have programs and a contract, and our experts go on training and probation to the EU ports. We receive assistance through experts who come and help elaborating here some ideas, offer us concept design solutions for developing these or those areas of the port business. Of course, we hope to get a support and are working with such financial institutions as the EBRD, EIB, and we hope in 2015-2016 to become partners not only at negotiation table, but also for implementation of some joint projects on behalf of the state. These institutions are present at the ports already, but they finance the private business. And we are observing and trying to build up relations to get funds for state programs from these financial institutions. This strategy prioritizes restoration of inland water transport and development of the Dnieper as North-South Trans-European axis, with its integration into the all-European inland waterway system. The implementation of these projects are being currently funded from budget of Ukraine as well as out of funds of Ukrainian maritime sector enterprises and financial institutions concerned, including European ones. As to the length of railways, Ukraine is the second in Europe, 21.7 thousand kilometers of railways. However, the implementation of its potential requires a higher level of management, development of operation processes, upgrading of infrastructure and renewal of rolling stock.
Ну, если говорить коренным образом, то расхождение в инфраструктуре прежде всего в том, что конструктивная ширина колеи в Европейском Союзе отличается от ширины колеи на территории стран СНГ, в том числе в Украине. Но если говорить о правовых нормах...
If taken fundamentally, the difference in infrastructure, first of all, refers to the different track gauge design used in the European Union and on the territory of the seas, including Ukraine. If considering legal standards of relations between the rail transport and rail transport users, it should be mentioned that the EU states have passed the railway reforming period, while we are only about to start it. The railway in Ukraine are a natural monopoly, and we are at the first phase of reforming the rail transport and creating a competitive environment for this mode of transport. A major part of reforms is also aimed at building and developing a competitive transport service market. To this end, Ukraine may benefit of experience of Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania that have succeeded in reforming their rail transport and entered the EU transport structure.
Естественно, мы учитывали опыт Европейского Союза, мы проводили несколько консультаций с экспертами и представителями железных дорог стран Европейского Союза, в том числе с ДБ Шенкером, это представитель немецких железных дорог, компания, которая...
It is clear that we have taken into account the EU experience, have consulted the representatives of EU railways, including DB Schenker, a representative of German Railways, a company set up at the base of the public railways of Germany. We have considered their reforming experience, taken into account those benefits and drawbacks they faced during the reforming, and correspondingly built up our technology in view of this experience. But we hope that we would be able further to seek for advice of our EU colleagues, so that our reform may proceed fast and with mitigated adverse effects.
Aviation may also be a very fast developing sector. It is growing in Europe by almost 5 to 10% every year. And it will help also to not only connect Ukraine with outside world, but to connect Ukraine with Ukraine. Ukraine is a big country where aviation plays still a role for internal transportation and for internal mobility.
The air sector has a great potential. Ukraine owns its own base for efficient aircraft production, while the rehabilitation of many airports could allow for increasing substantially the number of domestic and international flights. Antonov State Enterprise unites companies on designing and manufacturing the aircraft. The enterprise, working at the air market for more than 60 years, is among few implementing the whole cycle of modern airborne vehicle creation, from concept research studies to construction, testing, certification, batch production, and after-sales services.
У нас сегодня эксплуатируется более 5000 самолетов в 72 странах мира. И везде мы сопровождаем, обслуживаем. Это и Европа, и Азия, и Латинская Америка, и даже Северная Америка. Но у нас наметились определенные планы. Если они будут реализованы, и с точки зрения тут нужна помощь и поддержка и нашего правительства. Вот.
We have now over 5,000 planes operating in 72 countries of the world, and we support, maintain everywhere. This is Europe and Asia and Latin America and even Northern America. We have made certain plans. If implemented, though we need for this a support and assistance of our government, if implemented, we have now certain plans with Germany, are negotiating with Saxony, we have talks with Poland, and we have certain plans here too. Though we do need the support for these too, since there are some legal restrictions that impede our business initiatives. For instance, many would like to set up joint ventures with us, Poland and Germany, and offer certain programs, because this is, generally speaking, a recognized form of cooperation in this area. But legally, we cannot, as a state enterprise, to enter a joint venture. The Ukrainian air transport system is on the way to integrate into the all-European one. To implement the single sky concept in Ukraine, a number of measures have been implemented that open the air area of Ukraine to all its users. Air navigation charging system has been ensured according to Eurocontrol requirements. All district air traffic control centers have been automated. A network of airport has been on development today, and an aircraft fleet is being renewed. Ukraine obtained a huge experience of air infrastructure upgrading in the course of preparing to European Football Championship 2012. The next step would be integration into the common air area, an alignment of air service economic regulation system with the European laws. Speeded up development of big cities and national urbanization prioritize the development of urban and suburban transport network and acceleration of public passenger transport development. It should provide affordable and high-quality services for all social groups in line with high social standards.
This is still one of the main means of transportation for people in Ukraine. How to preserve its accessibility because of very low prices in Ukraine with comfort and security. If you look at marshrutkas, you ask yourself, was it safe to jump on? Every year, one small city in Ukraine disappears because of old people who are injured or dead on roads and streets in Ukraine. Let us work in order to save people's life on streets and roads in Ukraine.
Transport safety is a huge challenge for Ukraine. Last year alone, there were 5,000 deaths on Ukrainian roads, and 40,000 people were injured. Each of them is too much.
The road safety level improvement can be achieved only through joining the efforts of the state and road traffic police, non-governmental organizations, and road users themselves. The awareness-raising campaign is of particular significance, and this first of all refers to the education of children.
Recommendations could be focused mostly on using proper fuel and modernizing especially car sector in Ukraine. It's enough to walk in Ukrainian streets to see what is the air we have to respire with.
Transport, in particular road one, creates a significant anthropogenic load on the environment, accounting for the third part of all hazardous substances emitted in Ukraine. In the cities, its share in air pollutant emissions reaches 90%.
It is necessary to rethink the approach to ecological issues. One should not come at a late stage and think what can be remedied in ecological, in environmental terms. It's necessary to think right from the start how to bring about in a new project the compatibility with environmental requirements.
The transport strategy of Ukraine pays a proper attention to environmental safety and environment protection issues, in particular to reasonable use of natural resources for designing and building roads, and a stage-by-stage transfer to the direct application of international environmental standards.
Transport is one of the branches which consumes a lot of energy, and the cheapest energy is the non-spent energy. So let us focus also how to economize spendings on energy in the domain of transport.
Implementation of interventions specified by the transport strategy is to reduce transport energy consumption by 10–20%. This should happen through promoting use of alternative engine fuels, compressed natural gas and biofuel, developing energy-efficient modes of transport. In addition to the assistance provided by the European Union, a capability of Ukrainian government to implement these priority projects is equally significant. It refers not just to routine work of certain sectors, organizations and agencies. We are speaking about effective and consistent reforms provided for by the Association Agreement and, in particular, the implementation in the present-day challenging situation in the country. Tasks Ukraine is facing make to work intensively on the reform support by human resources. It may be reached also through sharing experience and best practices with European countries.
One of the most interesting and rewarding parts of my work here is that it allows me to bring people together. For instance, the European Union finances a number of twinning projects. These twinning projects bringing colleagues from the Ukrainian administration and bring them together with colleagues from EU administrations. Colleagues from Poland and Spain are working together with Ukrainian colleagues on railway reform issues. Colleagues from France are working with Ukrainian colleagues on multimodal transport issues. And colleagues from Sweden and Spain are working on aviation issues, and it is always a big pleasure to see cultures meet, know-how exchanged, and the groundwork laid for future development and understanding.
The European experience is presented in the transport strategy provisions. As a fundamental document that determines the sector future, the strategy must be implemented through practical actions of transport experts. The awareness of reform trends and contents are of particular importance for the future sector staffing. And this is why the Support the Transport Strategy of Ukraine project delivered lectures for transport students of higher educational establishments of the country. Changes the sector is going through are so material that have an impact on the everyday life of most Ukrainians, final consumers of transport services. The European Union pays a keen attention to the awareness-raising projects aimed at public support of the reforms. Within the framework of one of them, the information exhibition dedicated to the transport sector of Ukraine was delivered. It traveled throughout Ukraine, making stops at major transport junctions. Its primary result is a new level of awareness of Ukrainians, understanding of scales and significance of changes taking place. The exhibition presented also a role of the EU-Ukraine cooperation in implementing the current reforms.
I love working in Ukraine. It is a highly interesting work. It is a rewarding work. Immediately, when coming to Ukraine, one sees the huge potential that Ukraine has, that Ukrainian citizens have, and it's a pure pleasure to be able to help.
The work is very challenging, very interesting, and there's always very interesting to see a huge possibilities for improvement.